Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be giving my first looks at the Week 13 slate on DraftKings. We got a 13-game slate this week. So finally a big slate. We haven't had a big slate in a while. Usually it's like 10, 11 games. Got 13 games for Week 13. In my Week 12 and Week 11 first look at the slate, I did position by position and went through some options that I like. I don't think I'm going to be doing that from now on. I'm going to sort of just go through the process of building a lineup for Week 13. Sort of like a dummy lineup. Go through the process, talk about guys that stand out to me, guys that I think I will be starting in my cash game lineup come Sunday. And then on Thursday is when I'll release my full picks video. I'll go through each position and talk about the guys that I'm looking to target. Whereas today, I'll talk about the guys that stand out to me when it comes to cash games, looking at the guys that I'm going to be looking to target for cash. I did upload a recap video today on Monday. This video is going to be going up on Monday as well. I did upload a Week 12 recap video. I also went through my DraftKings lineup for Week 12, my cash game lineup. If you guys want to check that video out, just go back to the channel after you get done watching this. Or at the end of the video, there should be like a little annotation. It'll say previous video. You can just click that. It'll take you straight to the Week 12 recap. Make sure you check that video out if you haven't already. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Looking at quarterback, like I said, this is going to be sort of a cash game build. I'm going to talk about guys that I'm looking to target for cash this week. So we're not going to talk about expensive quarterbacks. I always like to go cheap at quarterback. So we're going to go to the cheap tier, some guys that really stood out to me. Early looks at the slate, some guys I think I'm going to be targeting come Sunday. There's a couple cheap options that I really like for cash this week. Josh McCown, 5,500, playing at home against Kansas City. I think McCown could be a guy we target come Sunday. Kansas City definitely gives it up to quarterbacks, so this is a good spot for McCown. He's very, very cheap at 5,500. Been playing really well lately, been pretty consistent. At his price tag in cash games, we're probably going to need like 16, 17 DraftKings points for him to hit value. In his last 4 games, he's had 18, 16.9, 13, and 29 DraftKings points. So McCown been pretty consistent. He has sort of a ceiling. He did put up 29 last week against Carolina. So I think Josh McCown really stood out to me as an early looks guy that I'm going to be looking to target. Definitely a guy I would be plugging into a dummy lineup if I was to make one. And then the other guy that really stood out to me, Blake Bortles. I know it's disgusting to say Blake Bortles, but he gets a matchup at home against the Colts. We know the Colts are not a good defense, so I think Blake Bortles is a guy we're going to be looking to target come Sunday, especially in cash games. At this price tag, we're only going to need like 16 DraftKings points for him to hit value, and I think he can easily do that against the Colts. And Bortles has shown a little bit of rushing upside, did rush for 2 touchdowns in Week 12 against Arizona. So he is providing a little bit of upside that way. Did put up 23.6 DraftKings points in Week 12 against Arizona. So Blake Bortles at home against the Colts could be a guy we look to target this week. I know it's gross, but the Colts, just not a good defense. We want to take quarterbacks against them. So those are a couple cheap quarterbacks that stood out to me that I might be looking to target in cash this week. Brett Hundley at 5,100 was another guy I think I might target. Hundley looked really good Sunday night against Pittsburgh, yesterday against Pittsburgh. He put up 22.4 DraftKings points, threw the ball really well, completed 65% of his passes, had 245 yards and 3 touchdowns. And we know Hundley is also a pretty good rusher. He can provide upside with his legs. So Brett Hundley at home against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defense has been very vulnerable against the pass, been very bad defending quarterbacks and defending the pass. Their pass defense has not been good as of late. So Brett Hundley, 5,100, might be a guy we look to target this week for cash games. Him, Blake Bortles, Josh McCown, some cheap options that really stood out to me. Tyrod Taylor is very, very cheap this week. He's 5,400 at home against New England. But New England's defense has been really improving lately. Even though Tyrod's really cheap, I don't think I'm going to be going there. Like I said, New England's defense has really been improving. There are some options in that same price range like McCown, Bortles, even Hundley for a little bit cheaper that could be options that we look to target. So I think when it comes to cash games for this Week 13 slate, those are some guys that stand out to me. I will give my full quarterback picks in the video that I upload either Wednesday or Thursday, so make sure you do check that out. But let's go ahead and move on to running back. Always a position we want to pay up for cash games because we have guys like Gurley, Ingram, Fournette, McCoy. These guys have such a high floor. I talked about it in the recap video when I rostered Todd Gurley. He had a bad game against New Orleans, but still put up like 17 DraftKings points. That's a bad game from Gurley, so these are guys you want to pay up for in your cash games. Always go cheap at quarterback so you can fit these guys in. And the guy that really stood out to me, early looks at this slate, is Leonard Fournette, playing at home against the Colts. I think he might be the running back I look to pay up for this week. Obviously, I'm recording this on Monday, so things are going to change. In my video on Wednesday or Thursday, we'll go through running back and talk about the guys I'm looking to target. It's probably going to be Fournette unless some things change. because I just really like this matchup. I think it's a prime bounce back spot. Fournette has not been that good lately, especially coming off injury. 6, 16, and 7 DraftKings points, but the workload's still been there. He's still getting plenty of carries. Got 28 carries against Cleveland. Still gets a couple targets as well. Will be involved in the passing game. Going up against the Colts, you would think Jacksonville is probably going to be able to get a lead here. They'll probably ride Fournette in the second half. He should see plenty of carries. So definitely like paying up for Leonard Fournette this week. He is a guy that really stood out to me. Even if I roster Bortles, it wouldn't surprise me at all if I wound up on Bortles and Fournette, especially in cash. I think both of these guys have pretty high floors and are in a really good matchup. So paying up for running back, that's the guy that I think I'd target. LeSean McCoy is interesting for 200 less, playing at home against the Patriots. But like I said, the Patriots defense has been really improving. But we know Shady plays well at home. You just look at his home and road splits when it comes to DraftKings scoring. At home, he's averaged 21 DK points, and on the road, only 13 DK points. And Shady McCoy does have a nice price tag on him at $7,600. So he is an interesting option, but I think Fournette for 200 more just makes more sense playing at home against the Colts. So paying up for running back, Fournette really stood out to me. He'd probably be a guy with target. On this mid-tier, there was an option I really liked here. Might be a guy we target, Jordan Howard, 6,500, playing at home against the 49ers. A really good bounce-back spot for Jordan Howard. He is definitely going to be a guy I'm going to be considering come Sunday. We know the 49ers defense, not good. They're not good. They don't have a good run defense. Howard looked terrible against the Eagles. He only ran the ball 7 times for 6 yards. Got 2 catches for 13 yards. Only put up 3.9 DraftKings points. But this is a prime bounce-back spot for Jordan Howard to go over 100 yards, find the end zone, put up a game similar to the one he did against Detroit, where he put up 21.5 DraftKings points, 125 yards, and a touchdown. That feels like the kind of game we're going to get from Jordan Howard this week. So he is a guy I definitely have some early interest in this mid-tier. I think I'd prefer him over guys like Lamar Miller. Tevin Coleman's interesting at $7K against Minnesota, but Minnesota's defense is really good. Even if Devontae Freeman is out, I don't know if we want to go to Tevin Coleman here. Really tough matchup. So Jordan Howard was the guy that stood out to me in that mid-tier. If we look for value, it's going to be hard to do value plays early in the week. Value will usually up and up as the week goes on, so I'll be sure to touch on plenty of value plays if there are some come Wednesday or Thursday when I release my full picks videos. But the guy that stood out to me maybe as a value play, Dion Lewis, 5,500. Dion Lewis has been getting a lot of the work in the Patriots backfield. He's pretty much the lead back. Going up against Buffalo, a really struggling run defense right now. Dion Lewis, 5,500, sort of a mid-tier, cheaper play. Stood out to me, makes sense in cash games this week. Kenyon Drake, definitely going to be seeing a heavy workload going up against Denver, but that is a tough matchup. Denver has a really good run defense. Damian Williams will be out for this game, so Drake's going to be the lead back. Should see plenty of work, but like I said, it's a tough matchup. Does have a nice price tag at $4,900, but I don't really like taking running backs against Denver. So don't know if we want to go there. Not seeing any value plays right now that stand out to me. We'll be sure to give value plays in my video on Thursday if value does open up. So let's go ahead and move on to wide receiver. Look for some options up top here. Julio Jones, definitely not a guy I'm going to be looking to target this week, I don't imagine. He's playing against Minnesota, probably going to see Xavier Rhodes. We know Xavier Rhodes, even though he did get torched by Detroit on Thanksgiving, I still respect Xavier Rhodes a ton. I don't take receivers against him. So for Julio Jones this week, definitely not a cash play, especially not at $8,600. I would really only save him for tournaments, but I actually feel like he might kind of be highly owned this week because a lot of people are going to roster him after his 50-point performance. A lot of people are probably going to point chase with Julio and go after him. So Julio just might be a straight-up fade for me this week. I think if I pay up for receiver, I actually prefer Keenan Allen going up against Cleveland. We know Cleveland's pass defense is not good. They do have a very good corner in Jason McCourty, who is a pretty good lockdown corner. But Keenan Allen does play a lot in the slot. And if he plays in the slot and McCourty does not travel to the slot, that was definitely something we'll have to look into as the week goes on. Keenan Allen, 8,300, might be a guy we want to pay up for. Dude's been seeing a ton of targets in his last 2 games, 13, 14 targets against Buffalo and Dallas. 43, 37 DraftKings points, just been killing it as of late. Really expensive, but great matchup against Cleveland. If Keenan Allen is not going to see Jason McCourty, this is a prime spot for him to just go off at 8,300. Still think he might be worth that price tag this week. And then in the 7K range, DeAndre Hopkins really stood out to me here at 7,300 going up against the Titans. We know the Titans have a really struggling pass defense. They don't really have any good corners. It will be interesting to see how DeAndre Hopkins performs Monday night against the Ravens in a really tough matchup. If Hopkins still manages to come through on Monday against the Ravens and still manages to put up like 15, 20 DK points, then he is the guy we're going to have to continue to consider. Even with Tom Savage, Hopkins has still been getting a ton of targets and he's still been producing when it comes to fantasy. And in a great matchup against the Titans, I think he's a guy, feels like a little bit of underpriced, might be a guy we want to target in cash this week. 7,300. If value opens up, we can get him and Leonard Fournette. We can pay up for some of these guys. Then I think we might want to target DeAndre Hopkins at 7,300. And if we're looking for some value at receiver, it's going to be hard to find value plays because it's early in the week. I'm recording this on Monday. But some guys that may be like 5K, 4K that we could target if we are looking for some cheap value. Maybe a guy like Marquise Lee, 5,200, pairing him with Blake Bortles might be something we want to do this week. We know the Colts can't really defend receivers. They struggle as a pass defense. Marquise Lee's still pretty much the #1 receiver for Jacksonville. Obviously, he was in a really tough spot against Arizona and against Patrick Peterson. He only had 1 catch for 2 yards, put up 2.3 DraftKings points, Week 12 against Arizona. Prime bounce back spot for Marquise Lee. Should see plenty of targets in this game. Should get back to at least double digits in DraftKings scoring. So 5,200, pairing him with Blake Bortles, probably going to be something we want to do in cash come Sunday. Then if we're looking for some value at receiver, there's a couple cheap guys that really stood out to me. Just their price tag, not the best matchup. But a guy like DeVanте Parker at 4,500, obviously a tough matchup against Denver, but 4,500 for DeVante Parker seems way too cheap. Obviously, hasn't been performing well lately. And Matt Moore does not target DeVante Parker nearly as much as Jay Cutler does. But if Jay Cutler is going to play for this game, then we definitely want to target DeVante Parker here, even in a tough matchup against Denver. We know Cutler likes to lean on DeVante Parker. When Cutler has played this year, Parker's seen consistent targets just week in and week out. I believe the Week 9, 10, and 11 games, Cutler played in those games, and DeVante Parker got 8, 9, and 9 targets. So the targets have consistently been there when Cutler has been at quarterback. Obviously, with Matt Moore at quarterback, probably want to stay away from Parker. Maybe go to a guy like Kenny Stills. But if Cutler plays, DeVante Parker, interesting price tag, 4,500. And if we're looking for a value at receiver, a couple of value options, maybe not cash game plays, more tournament plays, but a guy like Corey Coleman, 4,300 against the Chargers. Not the best matchup for Corey Coleman, but Deshaun Kaiser leans on this guy a ton. Corey Coleman, since returning from injury, has seen 11 and 8 targets in his 2 games back from injury, 14 and 9.4 DraftKings points, and he is only 4,300. We're going to need about 12 DK, 13 DK points for him to return value. Tough matchup against the Chargers, but like I said, Kaiser really leans on him. Kaiser targets him a ton. So Corey Coleman could be an interesting value option receiver. Same with DD Westbrook, 4,100 going up against the Colts. I really like DD Westbrook this week as a value option. I feel like he is a guy I'm definitely going to be considering in my lineups this week, especially at this price tag. Westbrook got 10 targets in their Week 12 game against Arizona. Westbrook's only played 2 games this year, and he's put up 6 and 10 DraftKings points, has seen 16 targets through 2 games. And just as the weeks go on, DD Westbrook continues to see more targets, continues to see more time on the field. Obviously, some of those 10 targets were because of Marquise Lee being guarded by Patrick Peterson. Marquise Lee is still pretty much the #1 receiver for Jacksonville. But DD Westbrook definitely provides tournament upside. Could be a guy we target in tournaments. Don't know if we want to go there in cash, but if he's going to see 6, 7, 8 targets at 4,100 against the Colts, pairing him with Blake Bortles might be something we do this week in our cash games. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing for receiver for value. Let's see if we can find some cheap guys at tight end. This is always a position I like to go cheap. I talk about this in all my videos. Never really like to pay up at tight end unless there's a ton of value and I can. So maybe looking for like cheaper guys. The guy that really stood out to me, obviously Hunter Henry going up against the Browns. The Browns cannot defend tight ends. This is a great spot for Hunter Henry. He's not that cheap. He's 4,700. Did see a big price increase off of what he was in his last game against Dallas. Did play well in that Thanksgiving Day game. Got 5 targets, caught all of his 5 targets for 76 yards and a touchdown, put up 18.6 DraftKings points. This is definitely a spot for Hunter Henry to keep things going. Like I said, the Browns really struggle to defend tight ends. So he was the guy that really stood out to me. Early looks at this slate, probably will be playing Hunter Henry come Sunday. Then another cheap guy I wanted to talk about, 3,200. Ricky Seals-Jones going up against the Rams. Not the best matchup, but Ricky Seals-Jones in his last 2 games has seen 5 and 6 targets and has put up 20 and 17 DraftKings points, has caught 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. I don't really think this is going to continue, but this guy is only 3,200. If he's going to continue to see targets, then I think he is a guy we want to target, especially at his cheap price tag. If we're looking to go cheap at tight end, obviously we probably want to play Hunter Henry at this position come Sunday, but if we need value, if Ricky Seals-Jones, if we think he's going to continue to see targets, 3,200, really cheap price tag. We're only going to need like 9-10 DraftKings points for cash game value, so he could be an interesting option. But this is definitely a position where I think I'm going to be looking to roster a guy like Hunter Henry, maybe even like Kyle Rudolph, somebody in that 4K range. Looking at defense, in cash games, this is always a position I like to go cheap. Quarterback, tight end, and defense in cash games is always a position I look to go a little bit cheaper. Because at running back and receiver, there are so many guys that have insanely high floors and insane ceilings. Like Julio Jones, we saw him put up a 50-point game. Those are the guys you're going to want to pay up for in cash, so you got to go cheap somewhere. So defense, tight end, quarterback, the positions I like to go cheap. So if we're looking in like this 3K range, a couple options stood out to me here. We always like to target defenses at home, so maybe the Ravens playing at home against Matthew Stafford. The Ravens do have a really good defense, especially when it comes to fantasy. They force turnovers a ton. You just look in their game logs. Got a couple games this year over 20 DraftKings points. They have the ability to get defensive touchdowns. They've done it multiple times this year. And getting Stafford on the road, out of the dome, this could be a good spot for the Ravens. 3,100, really nice price tag on them. They stood out to me as a cheaper defense to target maybe in cash games this week. And same with the Raiders. At that same price tag, playing at home against the Giants. We know the Giants, their offense is struggling big time right now. Eli Manning just has not looked good. He's been turning the ball over. He's been taking plenty of sacks. Although the Raiders' defense isn't the best, they're still playing at home against a bad quarterback and a bad offense. So 3,100, they are another option that really stood out to me. Them and the Ravens are probably the two options I'm going to look to target in cash. But like I said, this is Monday right now when I'm recording this. Things are going to change. We'll make my updated picks video where I go through each position and talk about the guys I like as we get more injury news throughout the week. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this week 13 first looks of the slate. Obviously, this isn't my full picks video. I will release that on Wednesday or Thursday, so make sure you check that out. This was just me going through the position and talking about guys that stood out to me as cash game plays for this week. So yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like. Also, be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. And if you missed my Week 12 recap and lineup review video that I did, be sure to check that out. At the end of this video, there should be a little annotation. Just click that. It'll take you straight to the video. Drop a like on that video. Would also appreciate it as well, guys. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Good luck this week, guys. Peace.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, she shaking fast. Yeah, she dropping slow. What? Yeah, neck on fro. What? Whoa, 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 whoa.